Okay. This meeting is being recorded. All right, all right. So we're going to get started on our continued series that we've been talking about for the last week or so here, the real estate consultant, the life cycle, right? So I truly believe there's three phases in real estate, if I could generalize them. And we started off last week with phase one. I'm a realtor. I'm a new realtor. How do I get a client? And this week we're going to go into phase two. That's going to speak more of, hey, I got a client. What do I do? Okay. So we're going to be moving right along here. But if you missed any part of phase one, I'd like you to go back. If you have any questions, stop the video. Please, any notes, anything that I missed, please let me know. Again, this series is about newer agents. It's not about experienced agents, right? So newer agents, as you evolve around the sun or evolve throughout the years, this may be your core foundation, but obviously you will add to it. You'll have more resources. You may be using different systems, different tools, different things that you may start learning about the market that allows you to build on top of the foundation that we're trying to set and lay here. I hope that helps. I hope that this helps. And with that, let's go ahead and start sharing our screen here and get this part two of the real estate consultant's life cycle going. All right. So, like I said, tonight we're going to go over phase two. I've got a client. How do I service them? How do I help them? I just really want to lock in on this is for the newer agent. Yes, if you're a more experienced agent and you've never had the training, this might be something brand new to you. But if you've been in the business for 5 years, 6 years, you pretty much have these things locked in, and it could just be a good refresher course. But let's go from there. So I'm a new agent. I've got a client finally. How do I help them? How do I service them? Okay. Some of the things I thought about when I asked that question was proper representation, right? What questions have I asked? What is really needed? How can I help them? Every deal is different. If you've done deals, every deal isn't just cut and dry. I want to buy a house. There's a reason behind wanting to buy a house. There's a reason behind, hey, I need to sell my house. Well, why? What things need to be different? Every house is different, right? Some houses are on well water. Some houses are on public water, right? Some houses are on septic tanks, where some houses are on public sewer. So, knowing your documents, knowing the client, knowing what they need, knowing everything, if you're a seller's agent, everything about the house so that you present the proper documentation, right, is big, okay? Representation documents at EXP, right? There's documents that we need to have, right? Besides the exclusive right to represent blank. So buyer or listing agreement or tenant or right, whatever that looks like, you got to have that. And then you got to have your other documentations. If you don't know that by now, then refer back to the initial emails that I sent you when we first connected, right? There's those two documents, the wire fraud advisory. EXP, yourself, me, will never ask our clients to wire us money, right? And then the associated business affiliates disclosure, right? So although you may not use those title companies on that affiliation disclosure, although you may not use that lending company on there, EXP has some sort of affiliation. So to have no conflict of interest and for transparency, we have to have those documents as well, okay? Remember, there's two sets of documents: representation documents, those three documents I just mentioned, and then sales documents. Okay, I'm putting in an offer or you have received an offer. Okay, I've got a client. How do I service them? Market knowledge. Okay, CMAs, right? So if you remember your class, CMAs are the closest thing that we have to an appraiser's tool, right? Appraiser's tool being they're using the theory of substitution. One house for another. Why is this house worth this and that house worth that? right? It's a lot different. We're not buying or selling candy bars. All of them are $1.99, whether it's a Hershey's or a Snickers or a Twix. We're not doing that. We're selling houses, right? So how do we obtain that knowledge? Are you comfortable with your CMAs? Okay. Prior experience. This is how you service your clients. Be transparent, be honest, be open. Okay. But through CMAs and prior experience, this can lead to better and more precise conversations. Ask amazing questions. Okay. Remember, you are not a lender. You don't work for a financial institution. You are not the title company. You are not a certified inspector. So use the amazing resources that you have around you. Okay. Whenever, for example, whenever one of my clients has a question, although through prior experience, I know it, a lot of times I may state the answer and say, yet let's get the lender on the phone so they can tell you the answer more specifically. Or I say, hey, this is what the contract says. Let's get the title lady on the phone so we can explain exactly what that means more specifically. Okay. Amazing resources also could be other great agents in other states. That is a niche business in this real estate, a niche lane of real estate, right? Where it's like, hey, a name and a number, I can pass it on and make 30% of whatever they do, right? But if you pass on a bad name and a number where it's like, hey, this person doesn't know what they're doing, they couldn't help me, they were never available, right? Then what does that get you? It gets you nothing. So have amazing resources, okay? This, in my eyes, makes you a full service agent, connecting your trusted resources with the clients that need them. Now, in Virginia, you don't have to do certain things, but in other states, they require certain things. Like in Maryland, for example, if you're going to pass on a contractor, you have to do certain things before you pass that name on, legally speaking. You have to check that their license is still active, that they're in good standing, right? You have to go to a certain website to make sure of these things. Okay. So just know what state you're in, know what you're doing, know the rules and regulations so that you don't get in trouble. We want to keep the dream alive, not make a nightmare. Okay. Ask the right questions. Asking the right questions leads to having a good conversation. And I learned this a long time ago. Somebody told me, even if you do this with your kids, imagine, watch how much of a conversation you'll have, right? Asking the how questions and the what questions, right? What does that look like to you, right? Think about that. Those are open-ended questions. Those are going to lead to bigger and better conversations. Okay. The better the conversation, the more prepared you can be to like let that person know, yes, I know what I'm doing. I can fully service you. Okay. A lot of that comes with time, but we're all adults. We've all, some of us have bought homes. We all have good experience in an arena of talking and speaking to people. Use it. Okay. One of the ones that I think is undervalued and not heard of a lot is be available. Okay. How do you service your client? Be available, right? If you're a buyer's agent, one of your main jobs is showing homes, right? Be available. Just know that in real estate, a lot of times we're working when our clients are not working. So when they get off of work, we need to go into work. And although it's not as simple as that because we work, we lead generate, we make calls, we follow up all day long, and then in the evening go show homes, you know, just know that when your clients aren't working, typically you are working. And that's a blessing in itself. Okay. Obviously, yes, if you can't make it to a showing, you can pay another agent or another colleague, again, another resource to show the house for your client or to open the door for your client, right? So that, they can still see the house. But main thing, be available, pick the phone up. I can't tell you how much business AKRE Consulting Group has had just from picking up the phone, right? And somebody says, hey, I saw your ad. Hey, I see your Google. I Googled you. Or, my friend mentioned you, and the friend, a past client of AKRE Consulting Group maybe hadn't told me, hey, I have a friend that's going to call you. Hey, Aubrey, your friend's going to call you. They didn't tell me that, but, I picked the phone up and hey, I am such and such friend, and I need help buying or selling a house. Okay. Finally, one of the best things I can say, how do you service clients? Know your systems. On here, I put SkySlope, Bright MLS, etc. That etc. Right? What is it? What does that look like? Bright MLS. We can do auto emails. We can do CMAs. CMAs, right? Bright MLS is the source, right? So every agent in the area, when they get a listing, they have to put it on Bright MLS. I mean, some people put it on Zillow only, Crexy if it's like a commercial thing, but 90, 98, 99% of all houses start off on Bright MLS, and then they get pushed out to to Zillow or Trulia or Redfin or Realtor.com or wherever other site, right? So Bright MLS is the real estate agent's source, and it pushes out to the resources, these other systems and tools. Okay. SkySlope is where you get all your documentation, email signature, electronic signature verification. That's SkySlope. That's all your contracts, all your documents. Like if you haven't read those, you know, it's a blessing that you're even in these phase to get a client, right? Because contract knowledge leads to confident conversations. And when you can have confident conversations, people know this person knows what he's doing. He's done it before. Okay. All of these things go hand in hand. Like it's a cycle. It goes hand in hand. It's all in one. Okay. So phase one, that's why it took so long, because that's your foundational piece. Right. And you'll see phase two is quicker and easier. Phase three is even faster. There's a little bit less responsibility for you to do in phase three. So phase one and two, there's more responsibility. Okay, cool. The best way to say these things are, how do I service a client? Have your systems, tools, resources, contracts, and conversations ready. Be up to date. Okay. Contracts, they just came out with updated contracts all across the board, right? They took the initials away from each page of our sales contract, right? And some other things that have been changed. Are you aware of those? Right? Let's dig in a little deeper. Have you heard this before, right? Systems, tools, resources, right? Contracts and conversations, right? Lead generation. Okay. These are the things that I've mentioned to you all from day one, and they've been mentioned to me from day one. And can't reinvent the wheel. You could put your own rims on it though. Okay. Let's move forward. Old car. Who remembers this from class? These are your fiduciary responsibilities. I want to start here because when you have a client, you know, you have to have the old car mentality first and foremost in the conversation. Hey, I want to do this. I want to, let's say somebody said, hey, I want to sell my house and I only want to sell it to a Black American, right? Okay. Now, when you cross check that statement, or a client who's saying that with the old car and the rules and regulations of real estate in Virginia, you can't do that, right? Yes, you have obedience to your client, but what supersedes that obedience to your client is obedience to the law. Okay. Loyalty. You have to stay loyal to your client. If you are a listing agent, you can't betray your seller's confidence and trust. Okay. If your seller told you, for example, I want to sell the house for 500, it's listed for 505, and as long as I get 500, it's okay, right? We'll take it. Well, you can't go out and tell the whole world, hey man, we'll take 500. It's a tough business. And as you're having conversations with the other side, the other agent on the other side, it's easy to say something that you should not be saying. Okay. Be careful, be aware, stay loyal. Okay. Disclosure. You have to disclose your offers. Um, if you're a listing agent, and you're doing a walkthrough of the house, like before you sell it, and you see a defect, material defect, a latent defect that the seller told you about, you have to disclose that, right? I hope we all remember this from class. Okay. These are your fiduciary responsibilities, right? A lot of times you might want to bring this up with the client before they sign the representation documents. Hey, look, I have a fiduciary responsibility to you. I'm not going to tell your business. I'm not going to go out there and tell anybody your credit score, right? These are things that allows the client to know this person knows what they're doing and I can trust them. Okay. Confidentiality. Again, it goes right back to the, hey, I'm not going to tell your credit score. If you have a 450 credit score and we need to do some credit repair before you buy a house, I'm not going to go tell the world your credit score. I'm not going to tell the world anything. I'm working with you and only you. What the world has nothing to do with this. Okay. So just remember, maintain your confidentiality. It's easy to slip up and say something more than you should be saying. Okay. Accountability. Not only does this have to go with your word, but it also has to go with the monies. So with monies, it's a little lessened in this area. And I wish some of the other people were here because we have a lawyer in our group. But accountability back in the day, we used to accept earnest money deposits, right? And then we take them to the title company, or we'd accept some sort of monies, right? And we would pass it along to the next person. Well, we don't do that. Well, I know I don't do that anymore. I.e., thus the wire fraud advisory, right? Like you don't wire money to me, you wire it directly to the title company who does the closing, right? So accountability. If you do take monies for some reason, you have to be accountable for that money. It has to get to its destination. In Virginia, you have a certain amount of time, right? So remember your classes, right? If you take money, you have a certain amount of time to get that money to your broker, right? Or get that money to the title company. Okay. In the sales contract, it says the same thing. If the agent such and such has this money, they have 3 days to deliver it to the title company who will do the closing. Okay. Accountability. Also, your word is your bond, right? These like I said, every deal is not the same. You know, like people are not the same. Everybody's not the same. So, there have been deals where let's say they're out of town and they need some work done to the house and a contractor's coming over. And I say, hey, I will be there at 8 o'clock in the morning to open that door for the contractor. I got to be accountable. My word is my bond. Okay. The stronger your word, the stronger your integrity, the more you'll see the fruit, right? The people will say, hey, man, I want to work with you. I want to work with you, right? Because integrity, transparency, honesty, accountability, those things are what people desire. All right. Reasonable care and diligence. All right. This one, to the naked eye is a little bit, I wanted to kind of go into Google to see how they describe it, because so Hatch.com has a site that kind of talks about it a little bit. I just want to make sure that we kind of describe it. I describe it correctly for you so that there's no questions about it, even though, hey, we're all adults. Like I said, please, 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 if there's any ever questions, like you go and you kind of, you get that, you go check it out. Check it out for yourself. Check me out, check anybody out that's giving you information. So due diligence, the meaning, if I just Googled it, because this thing ended up being tougher. It says reasonable steps taken by a person in order to satisfy a legal requirement, especially in buying or selling something. Okay. Reasonable steps taken by a person in order to satisfy a legal requirement, especially in buying or selling something. That's the best way to say it. Okay. These are your fiduciary responsibilities. If you're not operating within these, no matter what, you're already not servicing your client. Okay. Moving forward, this is what we're talking about. So the buyer's agent versus seller's agent. Now, this is very, very, very vanilla. Again, I mean, you're brand new, maybe you got a year under your belt, but you're still got a full-time job. You haven't been putting in a lot of, a lot of transactions. That's fine. I mean, it's okay. But this is the very, very basics of what each one does, right? The responsibilities of each. Okay, so not detailed at all. If you have questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Reach out to me via social media, via text, via email. You have all my information. Buyer's agent, though, we obviously want to save the buyer the most money. Okay, in Virginia, it's a buyer beware state. In Maryland, it feels opposite, like the seller show your card state, but we want to save them the most amount of money. Obviously, as a seller's agent, we want to make them the most amount of money, right? That's very obvious. Okay, buyer's agent, we are for as a buyer and their agent, what I want to do is to protect them, especially if they're a first-time home buyer. If they're a VA buyer, right? They military, they're coming from another country, they've been on tour, or they're coming from another state where it's totally different, a different economy. They're starting a new job. They got 1,000 things going on, getting their kids into school, finding the right home. They may not know they need their protections. So contingencies. I always say contingencies are like, I say it's a synonym for safeguards or protection, buyer protection. Okay. And we noticed in the seller's market during the COVID years, a lot of sellers weren't accepting a lot of safeguards or protections, right? Hey, take away all those protections and we'll let you get the contract. Well, your buyer is going in, without any protections. Okay. There's always one left, like HOA. That's always a unspoken protection. But everybody wants to get a home inspection or radon test or well septic. Getting those tests are that protects the buyer so that they have full transparency of the state of the house. Okay. Whereas as a seller's agent, you obviously have to state material defects, things that may not be seen once you find them out, like latent defects, things of that nature. But your biggest things are like signs, photos, lock boxes, right? Getting the house up and ready to run and to be active on the market, whether it's getting the house painted, getting some things upgraded, having a conversation to the seller about that, whatever that looks like. Your main job as the seller's agent is getting the house up to the MLS, up to bright MLS, so that the whole world can see it and that you can sell the house for the most amount of money. Okay. Buyer's agent, again, we're talking about inspections. I just said it: home inspection, radon, well, septic, right? So what's outside of that as far as protections may be like financing contingency, appraisal contingency. Okay. Hey, I have a house to sell. I don't want to be locked into buying your house unless I sell my house first. Okay. On the other side, the seller may say the same thing. Hey, look, I will sell you my house, but I need to rent my house back, or I'm not going to guarantee me selling my house to you unless I have a house that I want to buy. There are a lot of people whose houses, they withdrew them from the market because they couldn't find a house to buy. Right. So that's a really big thing. Okay. For the buyer's agent, talking about loan products, taking them to your resources. Hey, these are the different loans that they have. Okay. Figuring that out. Again, you're not a lender, so you need to have an amazing resource that's a lender. Okay. Call them up. Hey, Addie, right? McLean Mortgage or whoever you're using, make sure like Addie picks up the phone for me on Saturdays, on Friday nights in the morning. Okay. So I use Addie. She promises the best rate to my clients. So I use Addie. Right. And a local lender is always going to be better because they pick up the phone for the client and they go to bat for the client. All right. But as a buyer's agent, again, go back to the first step. We want to save them the most amount of money. Okay. If they came in with a lender, for example, like Rocket Mortgage, I'm not knocking Rocket Mortgage, right? But Rocket Mortgage, they're a national company. So maybe, they get thousands of people coming at them every day, right? And so maybe that lender for that buyer isn't picking up the phone like they should. Maybe they're not responding to emails and communicating like they should. And they're a first time home buyer. So they got a lot of questions. I know when I bought my first house, my wife was calling people at 11 p.m. at night. We were talking to our agent. And now that I'm a real estate consultant, people call me at 11 o'clock at night. This is the biggest purchase of their lifetime. Okay. So let's leave that there, put a button in it. Finally, title responsibility. Again, have a good resource. If you're a buyer's agent, have good resources. Okay. Your systems and tools have brought you this far. You're keeping everybody up to date, but you got to have good resources. Okay. Call them up. Hey, Mary, I got a title question. Now, obviously, the contract discusses title, discusses lending. Okay. In the excuse me, in any financing contingency, it discusses lending. If you have direct questions, go to that document. Okay. But anything outside of that, you need to be taking them to your resource. Hey, let's ask them and let's see what they say. That is the business. That is the work to be done. Okay. All right. For the seller's agent, what I noticed is a lot of times, even though I may put everything online, right, like from A to Z details, I get the calls from the realtor about the questions like, hey, I just want to know what's this, what's that, what's this, what's that. That can make or break a deal. Okay, so just have yourself ready. Like they're calling, they're asking questions about the house, and that's fine. It's the biggest purchase of someone's lifetime. Before they buy it, they're going to ask a few questions. Most it's like the HOA documents. Hey, what is it? Are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to do that? Well, we don't really, some people do, but most times, like we don't order the documents until there's a ratified contract. But some agents do order the documents as soon as the house is active. They order the documents, and then as soon as they get a contract, they give that person the documents because that is the hidden contingency for buyers, right? It's the hidden safeguard that cannot be waived. Okay. Now, again, not every home has an HOA, right? So just like people are different, every home is different. Okay. So just always remember that. And then finally, for the seller's agent, information about why the offer is good to accept when you're speaking to your client. If you're in a hot market and you've priced it right, the condition is good, and you've got multiple offers, and you're explaining, well, why is this one better than the other? All while staying inside of your fiduciary responsibility. You're asking that question. You're answering that question to your client, right? Why is this offer better than offer number 2 or offer number 5, offer number 8? Which one is better? Okay. Food for thought. Food for thought. Please, any questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out about that. So a little bit deeper, the role of the buyer's agent. Okay. Let's to know why I feel like you have to go into history of what was, where did it start? Now, once upon a time, there was no buyer's agent. It was only seller's agents. Now, can you imagine the conflict of interest, right? The conflict of interest. I mean, that would have been terrible. I'm talking about back in the day when it was like $70,000 homes and they had, 15% interest, right? So back in the day, like you all might not have been born then. Okay. And I wasn't either, I don't think. I'm not going to tell you now, but I definitely don't think so. All right. But could you imagine the conflict of interest there? How are you going to keep your fiduciary responsibility to the seller and tell the buyer, yes, this is the right house for you? Or was it like what we've been experiencing the last few years with COVID? Either take it or leave it, whatever. I don't care, right? Sometimes we experience that in new construction, right? Take it or leave it. I don't care. I got 1,000 other people that want this house. Take it or leave it. So I just wonder how that was, right? But the conflict of interest there, the lack of protection there for the buyer. Okay. So today, your duties as a buyer's agent can be found on your exclusive right to represent buyer contract in paragraph 5 if you're in Virginia. Have you read it? In case you haven't, paragraph 5. Okay. This starts off by saying these are your duties. These are your duties So if you're asking, hey, what should I be doing? And you got a client, right? And you've had them sign the exclusive right to represent agreement. You got to ask yourself, well, this is what I should be doing right here, right? Broker. And remember, you're a sub agent. You are, you're not a super agent, not a super spy, but you're a sub agent of the broker. So, they're referring to you as the broker because, you are representing EXP or whoever you're with, whatever agency you're with. You're representing them. You are the sub agent of them. Okay. So, broker will promote the interest of buyer by one, performing the terms of the brokerage agreement. Whatever you put in there, as far as time frame, you gotta honor it. Two, seeking a property at a price and terms acceptable to the buyer. Have you had a good conversation? Right? Presenting in a timely manner all written offers or counter offers to and from the buyer. That sounds like one of our fiduciary responsibilities, does it not? D, disclosing to buyer all material facts related to the property or concerning the transaction of which they have actual knowledge. Right? Hey, if you look up and see a water stain on the ceiling, you say something. Okay? Anybody that doesn't, it's like, wow, you know, are you really trying to protect your buyer? Well, now you know that is part of your job. If you look up, if you see it, if you see a broken window, that is a material fact. You just saw it. A latent defect or a latent fact would be something that's not so easily seen, right? But who would see that? An inspector, maybe, right? So that goes back to your job as a buyer's agent. Protection. Okay. Five, or E, accounting for in a timely manner all money and property received in which buyer has or may have an interest, unless otherwise provided by law or buyer consents in writing to the release of the information. Broker will maintain the confidentiality of all personal and financial information and other matters identified as confidential by buyer. If that information is received from buyer during the brokerage relationship. In satisfying these duties, broker will exercise ordinary care. Sound like a fiduciary responsibility? Old car, right? Ordinary care, comply with all applicable laws and regulations, treat all prospective sellers honestly, and not knowingly give them false information. In addition, broker may show the same property to other buyers, represent other buyers on the same or different properties, represent sellers to other properties, or provide assistance to a seller or prospective seller by performing ministerial acts that are not inconsistent with broker's duties under agreement. More fiduciary responsibilities. This is the reason I wanted to start off with the old car, because all of your duties have to do with old car. Okay. Finally, buyer acknowledges that seller or seller's representative may not treat the existence, terms, or conditions of offers as confidential unless confidentiality is required by a written confidentiality agreement between the parties. This is very straightforward. Okay. You have any questions, please feel free to reach out. It's very straightforward. We're going to move forward. The role of a seller's agent. The duties were so straightforward in the buyer's agent. I wanted to go back to the listing agreement and see just exactly how straightforward they were. Okay. So broker will perform, and seller hereby authorizes broker to perform the following duties. In performing these duties, broker will exercise ordinary care. That's the first one in old car. Or is that that might be the R, reasonable due diligence. With all applicable laws and regulations and treat all parties honestly. A, broker will protect and promote the interests of seller and will provide seller with services consistent with the standards of practice and competence that are reasonably expected of licensees engaged in the business of real estate brokerage, right? That's just as straight as it comes. Okay. Seller acknowledges that broker is bound by the bylaws, policies, and procedures and rules and regulations governing the MLS, the Code of Ethics of the National Associations of Realtors, the Code of Virginia, and the regional rules and regulations for the electronic lockbox system. So not only do you have to follow the rules, but you're telling the seller, look, I can't go so far. I can only do certain things. And sometimes like knowledge is power. You find yourself in a deal where you're doing something where you're not allowed to be doing it. It's never too late to stop and say, hey, I'm not allowed to do this that way. Okay. But that's why I'm keep harping on learn your contracts, know your contracts, read your contracts. I keep harping on it. You know, the sales contract, I think is like 12 pages now, 11 pages now. And like the last 5 pages are all reading, right? It's like 1 or 2 boxes to check, but it's mainly reading and information. Same thing with the listing agreement, 12 pages. The last 5 pages are mainly reading, just so that you have a clear understanding of what the rules and regulations are. Okay. Part B, broker will use reasonable efforts and act diligently to seek buyers for property. I mean, do we have to go any further than that? That's the job of a listing agent, right? So when you say, hey, I got a client, what should I be doing? Get the house sold. There's only 2 reasons houses don't sell, right? Price or condition, right? So knowing that, it's like you should be coming to them with a CMA. You should be understanding, hey, what's important to them, whether it's price, whether it's time, whatever that looks like, understanding what's important to them, y'all making a personalized plan of attack specific to this one client and executing, right? If you say you're going to do that, do it. But it just seems like common sense to me. So I'm going to move forward from there. C, broker will market property at broker's discretion, including without limitation, description, interior and exterior photos, inappropriate advertising media, such as publications, mailings, brochures, and internet sites, right? I mean, this is just straightforward. And on the listing agreement in Virginia, you have to let the seller know, I'm going to be advertising this. Do you consent to this? Okay. D, broker will present all written offers or counter offers to and from seller in a timely manner, even if property is subject to a ratified contract of sale, unless otherwise instructed by seller in writing. As straight as an arrow. As straight as it gets. You know, there was a time I remember maybe a few years ago where, you know, there was a buyer's agent who said, hey, I got the counter offer in the mail, in the email, and it went to my spam folder and I didn't see it. 3 or 4 days passed, right? And then that house is gone and everybody's looking around like, what happened? You know, it wasn't a timely manner, right? Cool. E, broker will not continue to market, show, and or permit showings after property is subject to a ratified contract of sale, unless otherwise instructed by seller in writing. Very straightforward. F, broker will account in a timely manner for all money and property received in trust by broker in which seller has or may have an interest. Right back to our old car fiduciary responsibilities, accounting, accountability. Okay, moving forward. G, broker will show property during reasonable hours to prospective buyers and will accompany or accommodate as needed other real estate licensees, their prospective buyers, inspectors, appraisers, exterminators, and other parties necessary for showings and inspections of property to facilitate and or consummate the sale of the property. That's just as straightforward as it can be. These are the rules of the road. Have you read them? Okay. Now, for our showings, we use Century Lock and Showing Time. So in an electronic world where, okay, the buyer's agent is going with the buyer, okay, the Century Lock lets us know every time a buyer's agent enters the code into our box, right? So that, that's very straightforward, but that goes back to phase one, right? Having all of those systems, tools, and resources ready. Okay. So very, very, very straightforward. And then finally, broker agrees to showing instructions to be shared with other real estate licensees and their prospective buyers are as follows. Broker will or will not. Obviously, it's will. Okay, we always will. Or if you're in the country somewhere and there's not a good service, consider using a combo box, a lockbox. Now, though, with that, you can't track who's come and gone. Once they get the combo, they got the combo. They can come and go as much as they please. So you have to be a little bit more diligent in making sure that nobody's coming and going inside your client's home. All right. Finally, broker will or will not install a for sale sign on property as permitted. Okay. Now they say seller is responsible for clearly marking the location of the utilities, equipment, other items that may be damaged, and that's 100% true. You can help them out by calling 811, call before you dig, miss utility, okay? Or you can give it to them. Miss utility is free and they come out like 24 hours later. Mark the property up, you get your sign in the yard and you keep going. Some of us use companies that put our signs. So our signs are in the warehouse. They're not at your house. They're not, at the office. They're in the warehouse. So that you got somebody who you don't even know is going to come out there and put the sign down. So in that case, you should have them call 811 the next day. And then you call them. Okay, it's good to go put the sign in the yard. Okay. This is very straightforward stuff. So let's keep moving. All right. Listings bring leads, leads bring leverage. Let's move into the next phase where it's like, okay, I've done a good job. I've done all of those. I've kept my word. I've kept all of those fiduciary responsibilities. My buyers got contracts. My sellers have contracts. Everybody's ratified and we're locked and loaded. Congratulations to you. Okay. Congratulations to you. Seriously. It's a tough business, and sticking to those fiduciary responsibilities is only going to make you a stronger and better agent. Okay. In that, know that if you're a buyer's agent, you're with the leads. Hey, can you tell all your friends about me, that how great of a job I did? You're always lead generating. You're always phase oneing. I'm an agent. How do I find a client? You're always phase oneing. Okay. So even now that you're ratified, that's perfect. Can you tell all your friends about me? Can you give me a referral? Can you leave me a review on my website? I really appreciate it. That will bring you leverage. By having more leads, that will bring you leverage. Okay. Some people, they just sold a house. They had to help their client buy a house. They door knock around that house and they say, hey, that house just sold. We got other buyers in the neighborhood. Have you considered selling your house? Okay. But more leads brings leverage. Okay. And leverage allows you to become that agent you want to be. Quit that full-time job that you really don't think is dead end, take you to where you want to go, where your goals are. Okay. Now, if you're the listing agent here, listings bring leads, brings more leverage. Okay. So you should get another listing out of that neighborhood. If you really did a good job and did all of your fiduciary responsibilities and you held open houses, you invited the neighbors to the open houses, you knocked 10 doors across from the house, 10 doors to the right of the house, 10 doors to the left of the house, you should be having neighbors that say, I'm ready to sell my house too. Right? Does that make sense? Right? I mean, it's just straightforward stuff, right? And from there, you should be able to get you another listing out of that neighborhood or move forward to the next neighborhood or however that works. But more listings. And then once you're the listing agent, buyers come to if you're doing open houses, you meet with a lot of buyers. So you get leads automatically. Okay. On my board, what I have here in the middle is integrity. Keep your integrity. Keep your integrity. Don't ever let that fall off where none of this matters. Okay. And then mine is also 3-dimensional. And on the backside, the backbone of it is knowledge. Knowledge. If you don't have knowledge and you're talking to leads, it doesn't matter. You'll never get the listing from them. If you don't have knowledge and you're not knowledgeable about what's going on in the market, you know, you never end up with leverage. Okay. Integrity, knowledge, listings, leads, leverage. Okay. Everybody wants to be the listing agent. Everybody does, right? Because the ideally they say you can sell 3 houses in the amount of time it takes to help one buyer. Okay. But be thankful for any client that's willing to work with you, because remember, this is a personal service. And yes, you may know your stuff top and bottom, up and down, right and left. This is a personal service business. Okay. So FYI, listings, leads, leverage. If you've never heard of it, you heard of it now. And this can even be added to by integrity in the middle, three-dimensional. What's not seen is knowledge. The knowledge. You can show the knowledge through your words and your actions. Okay. That is going to wrap up phase 2. I know that there's more. Okay. But let's put a button into it. Getting the client into a contract. If you've locked into the duties for a buyer and seller's agent with the old car fiduciary responsibilities, and you're on the right track. Don't forget your conversations, as well as putting clients into your systems and tools for auto emails or showing confirmations. Consider having your title, lending, contractor resources available for any clients with questions. Some of the finer details to consider, especially when you're making offers, okay? Market in the area. Which area are you in? Right? Fairfax County is the biggest county in Virginia. And how many areas does it have? Right? Think about that, right? Great Falls, Tysons, Vienna, McLean. Those are all different areas. Fairfax County goes into Alexandria, goes into Springfield, goes into Lorton. It butts all the way up with Prince William County, which is either the second or third biggest county in Virginia. And Prince William County has Manassas, Woodbridge, Dumfries, and so just know your area. Okay. Contingencies we went into, um, safeguards. Okay. Financing, appraisal, home inspection, HOA. Those 4 contingencies make the table. All right. In a seller's market, it's tough to get those contingencies in. In a buyer's market, you probably can get all 4. When it's so knowing the market. When is the buyer's market? Right? And it's funny, we're experiencing a buyer's market right now in Virginia somewhat in summertime, when normally it's a seller's market. So having knowledge of that fact, you can talk to a client, and somebody who may say, well, I'll maybe wait until, August or September. If they knew that it was a buyer's market right now and they could work on some things and get some things done, then maybe they say, oh, I'll buy now in July. Right? Because prices typically, yeah, they go down, but they went up a lot more than they go down over the last 3 years. Okay, so just food for thought. Closing day, build the table. What does your offer look like, or what type of offer are you accepting as an agent? What does it look like? Consideration. All deals have to have consideration. That is part of the law. And in your sales contract, they're noted as EMDs, earnest money deposits. Okay. Now, if you really want to have some leverage, some agents in a tough buyer's market, in a seller's market, they'll say, look, I got the home inspection, I got the financing, I have the appraisal, but what we're going to do is give you a 3% of the home price earnest money deposit that's non-refundable. Okay. Meaning that we don't want to walk away. If for any reason we walk away, the earnest money deposit stays. Okay. Now, in Fairfax County, with the average price of a home being 600,000, 700,000, 3% of that is 21,000. You think anyone wants to leave $21,000? So you got to be careful about how you say it, and when you say it, and where you say it. When you use it, you got to be careful about that. So know your market, know what's going on, and finally, stay available. Stay available. You'd be surprised when the calls come in, or I've picked up a few calls that said scam likely, right? And it was a person. It was like somebody saying, hey, I need help. And I'm like, whoa, that's not no scam. Thank God I picked this phone up. Right? So FYI, I'm going to wrap this up here, and I look forward to next week. It's going to be really fast, right? I've got a contract. What's next? It's the fastest part. We go over the details, and then remember, you're always in one of these phases. Sometimes you're in multiple phases. Like right now, I'm working with clients. We have listings. I'm a listing agent. I'm a buyer's agent with some other clients, and I'm still looking for other clients every day. Part of lead generation and follow up, right? My clients who I've worked with in the past, they reach out every day, Lord willing, and they say, Aubrey, I got somebody that needs help buying a house. I want them to work with you. So these cycles are always rinse, wash, and repeat. But if you're not operating at a high level, operating within your systems, tools, resources, your fiduciary responsibilities, your contracts and conversations, then it seems to always fall down, right? You want to build that house on a strong foundation. And that this is what we're talking about, a strong foundation. Okay. Look, I wish you all the best. I'm so thankful that you took time to take a look at the video to be here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. And I'd love to speak with you. I'm always here to help. And I hope you have a great evening. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to next week. We're going to phase 3. I've got a ratified contract. All right. From here, we're going to wrap this up. And again, I hope you all have a great evening. It was a pleasure bringing this to you. And again, I look forward to next week.